an argument. I just wanted you to say, here's a series of premises together by an inference rule that leads to a conclusion. Okay, and I'm going to give support
Do you
for the
realize
premises for you to believe that they're
talking for
true.
like the last 5 minutes? Like, are
You're
you
not
gonna
going
let
to give
me
an argument.
what you guys were arguing about?
I want you to give an argument for why God doesn't exist.
All right, so whenever we talk about a question like why, like you want to know why doesn't God exist? In my opinion, this is a question of epistemology. So we would immediately start with, I can't deny consciousness. This is my worldview. I'm not like you. I actually argue for my own worldview. You just argue for all these different views because you're too scared to argue for your own.
Just
That's
give
fine.
the argument.
But in my
argument.
worldview, underneath my epistemology, which I can hash out to you very thoroughly, right? And it is superior to your epistemology for sure, right? So underneath, like I can elaborate a little bit on
So
this.
God doesn't exist because your
Like I said
epistemology is
before,
superior to
I'm
mine.
Descartes.
Where's this argument?
Listen, I'm a Descartes guy, so I start my foundation of epistemology is I can't deny consciousness, and immediately I define knowledge. So knowledge is merely a set of thought processes and consistencies that lie within consciousness itself, and your conscious experience is our reality, right? So whenever I say thought processes and consistencies is just a synonym for knowledge, right? So when we're talking about give an argument for not, how do you know God doesn't exist? How do you know God doesn't exist? We have to start here first.
You could have false
elaborate on our epistemology. How do we know things to be true, right? This is
Jonjon, before you go too crazy, something to be consistent, right, is that there's no contradiction within the set, right? Like if you had a set, right, and the set was A, B, and C, that would be a consistent set, right? But
listen,
the
Jim,
set would be inconsistent.
Why don't you just not
No.
and let me finish hashing out my epistemology so that I can get around to answering your question.
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't want to get banned again for not talking on the mic. So just so everyone can see me talking on the mic.
See, Shamos, if me and you were debating right now, Shamos, I would smash your epistemology, and then
Look,
it would be
all I wanted was an argument for why God doesn't exist.
Yeah, you can't make arguments if you're not willing to hash out your epistemology. Do you not understand that?
Presumably, you have an argument for why God doesn't exist, and I just wanted you to give the reason for that.
You're not even engaging with what I'm saying, Shamos. Answer the fucking question.
Look, you have to have look. If I could start a tape recorder, you could just speak the argument into the tape recorder.
Let me know whenever you're going to answer the question, okay?
No. I was gonna sit here and listen for the argument.
Listen, I'm claiming that my epistemology is superior to yours, and I will fucking manhandle you right now on it. So what is your epistemology? And then once you hash that out, we can talk about whether or not we have arguments for the non-existence of God.
Jonjon, all you think that knowledge is some thought process that's consistent. But what you don't realize is you could have...
Are you not willing to tell us your epistemology, Shamos? Are you willing to tell us how you know things to be true?
Look, I'm trying to actually make you smarter for like the millionth time, and you reject my offer every time. I try to explain a couple things to you every night to just make you a little bit smarter, and you reject my offer.
And then you because you won't engage.
Would you be interested in finding out why I think your definition of knowledge is very, very silly? Because that's what I'm trying to take issue with now.
I already told you what I'm interested in, right? I'm interested in having a productive debate here, right? I want my epistemology to be compared to yours, which is fucking impossible because your
conversation started out with you telling that Christian gentleman, Cody R., right, that you had an argument for why God didn't exist. Seth asked you to give the argument. You said you were going to roll a blunt and you were going to give the argument. Now you want to compare epistemologies?
Yes,
hold on.
You can't answer your question without first elaborating on your epistemology. I mean, Jesus, should I take my pocket out and fucking let you hold on to it while I fucking walk you through everything?
Jonjon, you claimed to that man there, Cody R. and Seth, that when you got done rolling a blunt, you were going to give an argument for why God didn't exist. You don't need me here at all to give an argument for why God doesn't exist. Look, I can give an argument.
I was going to give an argument, but you interrupted me before I could even hash out my epistemology. In other words, how I know things to be true.
mean, look, there's no such argument for God's non-existence that starts off with, this is how I know things to be true, premise 2, premise 3, premise 4, God doesn't exist. There's no such argument. You're just bullshitting.
No, I'm sorry, Shamos.
Give
No,
premise
Jonjon
1.
is correct here.
Let me give you an argument for very quickly for why God doesn't exist, right? Okay? God is considered to be an agent. Okay? Agency needs normativity. Normativity presupposes the ability to fail. God cannot fail. Therefore, God does not have normative states. Therefore, God is an agent. Therefore, there is no God. Boom! Fucking done! I don't need to have a conversation. I gave an argument. There they are. They're all linked together by an inference rule, and then I can go and start to tell you what the reasons to think each premises are true. Okay, that's what a fucking argument is. That's what real men do that understand logic, rationality, reason, are able to defend stuff. That's how real men give arguments when they're asked to do so. So you show me that you're capable of doing that, Jonjon, just for once in your fucking life. Show me that you can do that.
I'm unironically on Jonjon and Tasteless' side. That is a terrible argument for reasons that Tasteless is going to illustrate right now, right?
Hold on, listen. Yeah, Shamos is dumb, but there's this. I think Christopher Hitchens said something that's interesting. If I can remember the quote, he said something like, "Hold on, I'm gonna try to look it up because I don't want to fucking ruin it, but it's really useful right now."
Oh, you're perfect. In the meantime, Tasteless can tell Shamos why that argument is so weak.
Are you looking for the...
never mind. I remember. It's really cookie cutter, right? He said that extraordinary claims are... He said that which is asserted without evidence
can be dismissed without evidence.
Dismissed without evidence. Right? So what Shamos is asking us to do right now is give an argument for God, right? Which is stupid. Or, I mean, for the... You know what you get what I'm saying. I'm really high. But... So it's fucking retarded. In other words, long story short, the burden of proof is on Shamos at the moment, and he's simply shifting the burden of proof.
No, if you're saying God doesn't exist, or you can give an argument for why God doesn't exist, that's a claim, and you have a burden of proof. The burden of proof rests equally on the atheist and the theist. Right? If the theist claims, I believe God exists, he has to give reasons. Well, the only way you can get around that is by defining theism as synonymous with agnosticism. The only way you can get around that, and since I'm very familiar with philosophy of religion, I'll tell you very quickly, the only way you get around that criticism is to define atheism as agnosticism, i.e. a lack of belief in the existence of God, which doesn't broke burden. You don't have a burden of proof.
Let's define atheism. What do you think atheism is, Shamos?
I think that atheism is someone that believes that no God or gods exist, or it's likely that no God or gods exist. That's what I believe in atheism.
All right, so I disagree with you. If you want to call me an atheist, my definition would be I have no reason to believe. I'm not convinced, right? I have no reason to believe in your God.
Yeah.
I think
that's just
up to you to convince
me. Agnostic is.
You haven't convinced me because
that's just
question begging every time.
Well, you're just an agnostic.
You guys can argue the semantics of those terms, but it seems to me that either way, you're going to take up a burden of proof.
No, it was relevant for me to bring this up because he's trying to lump me in a box or put me in a box, right?
No, all I'm saying is I'm not trying to lay claim to the linguistic territory or anything like that. All I'm saying is, by my accounts, that's agnosticism, and agnosticism doesn't have a burden of proof. So if you're just telling me that you're an agnostic, yeah, you don't have to prove anything. So congratulations, you can go smoke the rest of your blunt now.
I disagree. I think that he does have a burden of proof.
No, he was saying you have no.
He does have to prove something, just not what the claim that was initially on the
Shamos, you're wrong. He said you have an imaginary sky daddy. That means that he's saying that your God does not exist. Right? He might be agnostic as to like all gods, but he made a specific claim about your God. So what's the argument for that?
Yeah, he's claiming
that's right. But then Tom's actually right there, Jonjon. Yeah. You didn't claim that you lacked belief. You claimed that you had a positive belief that he was imaginary.
No,
now,
listen,
that's not a lack of belief.
Many times, right? I've already went into I
can start with premise.
Right?
Premise one. Premise one is what?
Oh, fuck.
What's the first premise?
Listen, I think that you're a terrible interlocutor, first of all. And second of all, I've had this discussion with you so many fucking times, right? And you've always it's just always been cancer because you want to engage with me and you just rant. So I've explained to you many times over and over again that it's all, whenever it comes to epistemology and knowing things to be true, it's all about likelihoods and probabilities. And I've explained to you that you are a hypocrite within your own reasoning because you, for the most part,
where's the argument though?
Pay attention. You, within your epistemology, Shamos, you also do the same as I do. You subscribe to like likelihood.
Okay, what's the argument for the imaginary sky daddy? No, one more time. What's the argument for that?
So I've always explained to you that.
So I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take it by your stalwarting that you just don't have an argument.
I try to make right.
No, but I'm just taking it that you don't have an argument.
That just goes to show that you're not willing to even understand what I'm trying to get at. Like
no, I just understand that you're not going to give an argument. John, do you realize I've spoken with you or heard you speak multiple hundreds of hours? Multiple hundreds of hours I've either spoken with you or heard you speak. I'm talking probably 200 hours I've heard you speak or spoken to you. And let me tell you something that characterizes a feature of those 200 hours. You have never once given a single argument. Never once given a single argument, John. And think about that. That's 200 hours. That's like watching 100 2-hour movies. Imagine listening to the dialogue of 100 2-hour movies and never hearing an argument out of it. Wouldn't you just be fucking over it if you watched the 200 movies for a fucking argument? Wow, I just watched 200 movies to find an argument. I just listened to 200 hours of speaking and no argument. Yeah, people get pissed off. People start cutting motherfuckers off. People start, it starts getting annoying, right? That's why, but if you can redeem yourself this very moment, by giving an argument starting with premise 1. I showed you how to give an argument. I showed you what it looks like to actually say premise 1, premise 2, premise 3. It's valid. It follows together by an inference rule. Here you go. Boom. That's an argument. Okay. Now that we realize it's an argument, let's find out the reasons to think the premises are true. We know it's fucking valid.
That's a formal argument.
Do that, Jonjon. Do that. Show me you really are capable of doing that. If you could do that, then you would impress me. You really would be beasting people. You really would be half of what you really thought you were.
How these conversations are.
Just give a simple argument, Jonjon, one that we'll all agree on. Just give
anything I'm saying, right?
Jonjon, just give a simple argument, like just make one up, like that we would all agree to.
I'm not interested in doing that, right? I'm interested in hashing out my my epistemology. In other words, how I know things to be true. I'd get into probabilities and likelihoods for determining what is true and navigating in the world. And then I would say something like, based off what we know about neurology and a little bit we do know about the brain and consciousness and our biology and things like that, we do know that the human brain is extremely susceptible to things like hallucinations, bias, bigotry, the whole 9 yards. So with this information in hand, we can, I'm confident that if somebody comes up to me right now and says that they just had sex with God or said some stupid shit that they seen God or they talked to God and things like that, like Shamos probably would, I'm going to be skeptical and I'm going to say something like, I have no reason to believe that you're actually talking to a supernatural being, because I always take issue with people stepping outside of a naturalistic framework, because as soon as they do that, they're fucking retarded and you can ignore them.
You don't even know what naturalism is. I remember I asked you what naturalism was, and you accused me of being a fucking pedantic asshole.
Do you subscribe to a concept of supernatural, and if so, can you elaborate on that?
What supernatural is?
Yes, that's what I asked you, fuck.
Well, there's a couple ways that you could define it, right? So I'll give you 2 different ways that you could define the distinction. So, go ahead, Tom. I'm letting him off the hook because he still hasn't given an argument for the whole skydiving shit.
Shamos, trust me. You're really weak. Trust me. I'd rather talk to somebody else, to be honest.
Are you saying that you could give an argument, you're just declining to at this time?
Consider natural things that are things that are governed by natural laws and regularities and stuff like that. That's what I consider, and they're explainable in terms of those things, right? That's just the claim of naturalism, right? Naturalism is just the idea that the world can be explained in terms of the natural sciences, right? Well, that's what naturalism is, right? And
Hey,
it's just
I have a
so
challenge.
supernaturalism. So you don't want to know what supernatural is.
Just pay attention.
You're asking
Pay
questions
attention.
you have
I
no
have a
intention
challenge for
to
you
hear
to
the
do.
answer to. Okay.
My challenge to you is to be intellectually honest about your epistemology, right? I want you to go ahead and tell us what you think, not what anyone else thinks. I always have to remind you of that, right? Because you're so dishonest. So I want to know what you think, right? I challenge you to be honest and tell us your epistemology so that you can expose yourself, right?
I'll tell you what. I'll do anything you want, right? Anything you want me to do. Okay? I'll even make bad arguments on purpose, right? To give you a hand up.
I don't want any of that. Just do what
if you can just do one thing for me, I'll do whatever you want me to do. You just give one argument. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Shamos, just give us just look if he can make a solid argument, just any argument. Why don't you agree to send a dick pic or something?
Like all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. It doesn't even have to be an argument that concludes that God exists. Just show me that you can actually formulate an argument and know what it is. Do you know what I just did there? All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. That's an argument. Those are two premises, right, that are linked together by an inference rule, okay, and lead to a conclusion.
Shamos.
Okay, give me an argument one time.
Shamos, this seems totally unfruitful. Like it seemed like earlier when he was talking about I don't know master mindfulness. You seem to know him better than I do, so you can.
Yeah. You know what's fruitful, you son of a bitch? Let me tell you something. You fucking sit here and you talk to this motherfucker over the course of 9 months for 200 fucking hours. Never get an argument out of this little bastard. You have to listen to him sit around the same fucking thing that he heard off Sam Harris podcast 100 fucking thousand times, and then you sit here and tell me you don't get.
Can we get a ban on this faggot, please? Not you, Shamos.
Just ignore him. But in the meantime, I don't think that your approach is fruitful, right? Because he could just. I don't know that he seems high, so. I don't know that he has the ability to articulate.
The word you're looking. I'm sorry.
No, I think the saddest part about this. I think the saddest part about this is this pot-smoking stoner skateboarder from Florida is just honing the fuck out of Shamos. Jesus, it's just embarrassing.
Well, and Shamos' defense, I ain't no bitch.
No bitch prime directive.
I don't even look. As a matter of fact, I just try not to even talk to the kid. But I mean, he's injecting himself in a conversation, and he started making bold claims. He told that guy, that Christian gentleman that was in here, and maybe he's still in here, probably not. Cody R. He told him that the Christian God doesn't exist. He said that the Christian God was imaginary, and then he told Seth that after he got done rolling his blunt, that he'd fucking come in here and give an argument that God didn't exist. I'm just tired of the fucking lies. I'm tired of the fucking all the bullshit. If he's saying that, let's hear it. That's all I'm saying. I'm sick of him injecting himself into the middle of conversations as if he has something fruitful to offer when he has nothing.
Shamos, are you familiar with the term hic rotus hic salta? Am I pronouncing that right?
No.
Is this another joke, Seth?
No. Look it up, Shamos.
So, do you accept my challenge or not? It was pretty simple. I mean, it's not hard. Everyone else does it all the time.
I think you'll enjoy it, Shamos, especially right now.
Yeah, because you're looking real bad right now, Shamos. Come on, you got to come back. I'm rooting for you.
What do you mean? You're looking so bad that you can't even give a generic argument for any fucking conclusion. That's how fucking bad you're looking right now.
Listen, I told you that I would like to put my epistemology up against yours, and you just keep running from me, man.
No, you.
All my challenge was.
Jonjon, the trolling was funny and all, but can you put together an argument? I mean,
how is that not a red flag to everyone in the room?
No, he cannot.
Shamos, sorry.
Look,
Jonjon,
cats
just
are
put together,
mammals.
just make up an argument.
Fifi is a cat. Therefore, Fifi is a mammal.
Listen, Shamos,
you want to just fucking use the same form and replace the content with different nouns. Use the same form and replace the content with different nouns. Use the same form, replace the content with different nouns. That's all you got to do, dude. That's it. That's all it takes. Change it to giraffes. Change it to fish.
I just want to remind you, Shamos, that you did start this.
You're fucking retarded, man. I can't believe you come in here claiming to wreck people, claiming you're dropping knowledge, and you can't even give a generic argument.
I'm making you look really bad. You
what are you
proving to everyone in the room that you're dishonest and you're not willing
I just showed that you're nothing more than a little garbage disposal. I fucking hit the button on you.
I gave a really good quote from Christopher Hitchens, and it just annihilated you, right? And
Christopher Hitchens is a fucking moron. Christopher Hitchens is a fucking moron. He made some of the worst arguments against theism that ever existed. Christopher Hitchens was nothing more than a drunk sophist.
Hey, I'm going to get off here, but I'll say, hey, thanks.
Cool, man. See you next time.
I just love how he's like, I've just beat you with Christopher Hitchens. Wait, what?
Shamos. I'll just read you the Wikipedia entry for Hick wrote a 6
If you guys think that I'm getting wrecked, the people who think I'm getting wrecked right now, you guys are seriously I feel bad for you guys.
Just start a straw poll. Just start a straw poll, and we'll figure it out. We'll find out who the fuck is getting wrecked or whatever you want to think. And the people will probably vote for you just to pump up your confidence to see you get smashed even harder.
I'm willing to give you chances all the time, but you won't fucking engage. Why won't you tell us your epistemology?
He literally said he will answer any single question you want.
Why can't you give a generic argument for any conclusion? Why can't you answer the promise that you gave to the room earlier that you were going to give an argument for God's existence? Why can't you do any fucking? Why can't you deliver on anything you promised? Why can't you fucking do that?
I did, but the problem is that you want to talk about these things on such a surface level. And I completely leveled up on your bitch ass and immediately went into how I know things to be true. I went into my epistemology.
Jonjon, you define knowledge as the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard.
Look, why don't you just share with us your epistemology so that everyone in the room can just see how fucking retarded
Let's talk about with Jonjon. You know what the first thing out of his mouth was? I'm going to define knowledge as a process in our brain, right, which is consistent. Okay? That has to be the dumbest fucking definition of knowledge, because I could go ahead and posit processes in our brain or in our mind which are consistent, which are false. Consistency does not imply truth, okay? Consistency just implies a non-contradictory set. You could have a fucking set of 10 propositions, all of which are false, all of which are consistent, okay? The moon is blue, okay? The ocean is red, okay? Now, if that set right there of two things are consistent. They're not contradicting one another, but they're both false, okay? And if I had those two things in a process of my mind and of all these things and they were all consistent, then Jonjon somehow thinks that that's knowledge, okay? But guess what, Jonjon? Knowledge cannot be false. Knowledge has to be true, okay? Truth is one of the necessary conditions of knowledge. Any asshole that tells you that truth isn't a necessary condition of knowledge is either a pragmatist or fucking retarded.
What's the difference?
So under that basis, then God doesn't exist?
Who just said what's the difference? Was that Seth?
Yeah, it was a joke.
You listen to me, you little motherfucker. You down up for once in your life, okay? And stop running around here pretending like you have arguments or that you're worth any of our fucking time. You know what, Jonjon? You were actually a lot more fun when you were talking about pimping girls out to Arabs and whooping Floyd Mayweather's ass. I used to like you back then. You were actually funny back then and cool. But when you started to get in here and posture and fucking speak about epistemology, some large word that you heard say a few times, that you want to fucking wield around like a sword that you think is cool, and you want to throw around some fucking stupid-ass proprietary definition of fucking knowledge that's completely inconsistent with what you believe your self-knowledge is, you're just fucking wasting all of our fucking time, okay? Go finish your blunt and finish up your YouTube fucking playlist, you little faggot.
You're a crazy person, man.
Now you know what it's like to be wrecked. Sit the fuck down.
You're just upset.
Hey, Shamos. So, in Aesop's Fables, there was a dude that always bragged about how he can do the best long jump in Rhodes. He did the best long jump in Rhodes. And some bystander finally said, "Here is Rhodes, jump here." Basically, put up or shut up. Hic Rhodus hic salta. Every time Jonjon speaks, that's what pops in my mind. Hic Rhodus hic salta.
And you don't even have the verbal wit to even dismantle somebody. Even if you had like all the right thoughts in your head, you wouldn't even be able to put it in a coherent sentence to even get it out in the way you actually you had the right thoughts in your head. You wouldn't even be able to spit them out in a way that it even sounded good or even it made sense to fucking anybody. Okay, you just don't have that type of verbal acumen, right? You're not witty enough. You're not smart enough on the fly. You could never do what I just did to you ever. Okay, you just run around and make a bunch of bullshit claims and say a bunch of irrelevant fucking terms.
Oh fuck!
You just go back to the old Jonjon. Go back to the old Jonjon. Go back to fucking talking about. Go back to telling us about growing up in Florida and fucking pimping out girls, Arabs, and fucking dog fighting and fucking smashing dogs in the head with a shovel, taking them out back and smoking bud with your dad and fucking running trains on hose with your cousins. That's when Jonjon used to be cool, right? Because that's when Jonjon was real. That's when Jonjon was talking about shit he actually knew what the fuck he was talking about, okay? Now, this fucking Jonjon, the little fat for the last 6 months, doesn't know what he's talking about. He just wants to say a bunch of big words and try to sound fucking cool and incorporate some things he heard off the Sam Harris podcast last week, okay? No one's fucking interested. You lost your appeal.
I'm sorry, Shamos. I didn't mean to do this. But on my behalf, I always warn you. I always try to tell you I'm dangerous, and you just don't listen. All right, so finally, we can try to have a productive discussion about this. So, because he's done ranting. So basically, first we can bring up the quote that I brought up from Christopher Hitchens. It's a good one, and it says something like, "That which is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence."
Can I stop you there, Jonjon?
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So you
First
said.
of all, that's not even a Christopher Hitchens quote.
Hold on. That which is presented without evidence, without evidence. Well, you said, well,
yeah, Hitchens definitely wrote that.
Is an invisible sky daddy, and you presented that without evidence, so I reject it without evidence.
He said that sarcastically. He didn't actually mean that.
But just think of the quote itself, right? Should I dismiss what you just said because you didn't present evidence for it?
Yeah, that too.
It was formed before Hitchens. That traces back to a contraposition of something Carl Sagan said. I can't remember the writer who actually wrote it. That line does not originate from Christopher Hitchens. Not that I think that actually matters or anyone should care about that. But ultimately, what is that supposed to be, Jonjon? Your argument or something?
I wasn't paying attention.
Should probably go back to that. Go back to doing that.
What was said, Jonjon, was that we can dismiss. It's very self-refuting. I can just dismiss what you said since you didn't provide evidence for it.
Did you just? Was that a response to what I said about Christopher Hitchens' quote?
The Hitchens quote. I can dismiss it. There's no evidence for it.
That's hilarious.
It's self-refuting.
How is it self-refuting to say that it's up? The burden of proof is on you whenever you make positive claims. How is that self-refuting?
Have you presented evidence for that claim, Jonjon?
What claim do you think I've made?
That you have to have evidence to support your claim.
No, listen, whenever we are arguing, whenever we are engaging in reasoning, we are simply trying to persuade one another with sufficient evidence. So with this being said, whenever you start making these positive claims about an imaginary sky daddy, the burden of proof is on you. Now, if you guys want to ignore this, I can't fucking help you.
Look, I mean, what Danny's pointing out, what I'm tackling as well, is the fact that you said that which is presented without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Well, that claim in and of itself is presented without evidence, so it can be dismissed.
Well,
it is based on
not really. I
evidence,
go into my
so.
epistemology immediately. Like, so I understand that we can critique all
where's the evidence that
I'm willing to
is
defend my
presented without evidence can be dismissed without evidence? Where's the
I
evidence?
think you're misunderstanding, sir.
Jonjon, anyone in this room could literally just Google a random argument for the existence of God and it run through the premises, just try to just premises any way that they think they can to motivate the fact that they're true, and you wouldn't be able to respond to any of it. Like, I could just start with the Kalam right now, and you would just be you would be lost. You would be lost at sea. And that's why do you think I've never ever presented you a legitimate argument for the existence of God? Right? Because you're just going to be lost at sea. It's just going to be a complete fucking train wreck. It's not like you're going to be able to sit down and like deeply analyze it and make coherent points. So I don't even. Why would anyone in their right mind present you a fucking argument like that?
So,
like, presenting you an argument actually presupposes that you have the ability cognitively to respond to it. That would be absurd.
So yeah, you're just freaking out again. Just relax. Nobody wants you to rant for another 20 minutes. But what I find most annoying about these discussions, or these what I consider bad interlocutors, is that they're not really willing to put one worldview up against another. Like, I'm sitting here, I want my worldview. I think I have the best worldview in the room, right? Obviously. And I would beg any one of you to try to wreck my worldview, right? But whenever I run into people like Shamos, it is fucking impossible to have that discussion. It is impossible to have that debate with him. Because he won't open up about his views.
Because having that debate with you, right, is that you're competently able to engage in that debate.
And
right?
You get triggered and you start talking shit.
Look, in order to debate you, right, that would just presuppose that I think that you're competent enough to participate in the debate.
Listen, at this point, I think you owe it to everyone to just go ahead, because what's so sad about this is that I'm pretty sure a lot of people know my views pretty well because I defend them and I'm open about them. What's so sad is that
everyone's familiar with your views because they saw the Sam Harris podcast last week. Yeah, everyone's familiar with your views.
Are you fucking kidding me? You know how fucking ridiculous that is? That you debate all the time. Nobody in here can fucking nobody in here knows your views at all, right? Nobody can.
What?
It's pathetic, right?
Actually, that's not true. Actually, I've put a lot in the past. I put a lot of my.
We can test it right now. Does anyone in the room know about Shamos' epistemology, his moral epistemology, anything like that? How he knows?
Yeah, people. I've talked about my moral epistemology in great detail for fucking a long time over the course of these chats. I guarantee you, Philip right there, he might disagree with my view, but he can tell you very, very clearly that I put those views on the table. Now, whether or not I've been able to adequately defend them or whatever, it's indisputable that I've actually tried to defend them. Okay, and I've actually tried to defend many philosophical views.
Remember, I called you out for question.
I've attempted to defend moral realism.
Justin Smart.
Okay,
he wrecks you. He would wreck you, right? And Seth and Justin.
I don't think so.
Well, because I was wrecking you a long time ago, and I was explaining to you that you're question begging. And you're acknowledging it right now, but people are letting you get away with it, right? You just acknowledge, I've tried my best, but it's undisputable. I defend my views. No, that's just bullshit. Yes, I question beg all the fucking time, and at least I try. It's just fucking pathetic.
Look, I think that Shamos has a view on morality that's consistent with Bill Gromy's view on value properties, and he thinks that value properties exist in the world. Is that true, Shamos?
Yeah, that's true, and I put that on record many times in these hangouts.
All right, you've just
Put
been.
my view on moral realism on offer many times. I've tried to defend things like externalism in terms of justification. I've tried to defend all types of like positions of arguments that I actually agree on. Like I've tried to defend like dualism. I've tried to render arguments for
Jonjon,
the fact that
I don't.
naturalists can't justify meaning.
Shamos,
I've
give me
tried
just
to
1
render
second.
arguments. I've put so many
Let him
arguments on
finish,
people. It's
I
fucking
don't.
ridiculous.
I don't know what Shamos's like moral or epistemological positions are right now. Not because he hasn't expressed them in the past, but because they're always changing. That's not a bad thing, right? People who are, I mean, talk to anybody who's really deep into philosophy, and I mean, their positions on a lot of things change a lot because the more you understand about, I mean, me and Shamos were talking about this a little bit earlier, right? The more you know about each philosophical notion, the more you know that each solution to a philosophical problem has its own problems, like all of them. There are no easy solutions.
Yeah, that's fine. That's why. That's
so
why
you bounce around a lot.
Be willing to defend your defend your views, but the issue that I run into, and the reason why it is a complete waste of my time to take people like Shamos seriously, is because they don't want to. They want to step outside of the frame of pragmatism in the sense that they subscribe to a concept of supernatural, and then they could just question beg all day long, right? That's why I said that's all Shamos is to me, is somebody who question begs. That's it.
You don't even know what question begs is.
It's a waste of fucking time. Yes, it is. Listen, supernatural is that which we can't understand, right? You would basically say that your God is supernatural. So God is something you can't even understand, but you subscribe to it. It's just embarrassing, right?
When did I say any of that? I don't think you could ever find any record of me saying any of that shit.
All right, so what do you think God is? Because last time I tried to get you to define God, you ran away from me, or you completely shifted the goalposts.
Listen. You could look.
You just ran.
I'm not going to fucking have a. I'm not going to with you about what God is, because that would presuppose that I think you're actually capable of being in the conversation.
Every single time I try to get you to be honest about the existence of God, you won't do it. You only want to talk about whether or not Jesus was a fucking real person. It's just embarrassing, right? So now,
the reason is because I think you are so incompetent. It would be a waste of my time.
Than Jesus, in your view, I know you're fucking you, right? You're stupid. You think that God is Jesus and Jesus is God. That's how fucking stupid you are, right? It's impossible to have a productive conversation with you.
I'm gonna let you get the last word in and speak for whatever, but after this, I'm gonna just change the subject and try to talk.
Did what I say, is that true? What I said or not? Fucking engage, faggot. Do you think God is no different than Jesus? Yes or no? Just run away. I mean, that's all you're good at.
Jonjon, I mean, I could say things that were like Christian heresy and like appeal to like modalism or something like that, and you just wouldn't even know how to respond to it, and I would just snake it right past you, completely like use sophistry, snake it right past you because you're that fucking retarded, and it would be funny to do it, and everyone here would have a big kick out of it, and I still am not even interested. I still would be lame.
Yeah. Do you think that Jesus is God? That silence tells you guys everything you need to know about this discussion, right?
No, just to be clear and to be honest, I mean, I don't know exactly what Shamus's views are. I know he defends, he's able to take any position and defend it and attack, of course. But I don't know any of his particular own beliefs. I don't know any of them.
I'm new to the room, so I don't know what either of you guys believe.
Yeah.
He literally said like 20 minutes ago that he's a Christian theist, so there's a belief.
Jonjon doesn't know any of my views, but I'm the person that convinced him of moral realism. So he should at least know that I'm a moral realist or something like that, but so fucking dumb, or smoked too many blunts in the last couple months, he doesn't even remember that conversation. So he doesn't remember that view that I told him about. Like, doesn't remember fucking. I mean, obviously hasn't been listening to this last week or month or any of the arguments that I've attempted to defend in the last couple of weeks or month, because each one of those is a distinct position.
Well, I know your views about bitches. I know that, and about certain aspects of life.
Hey, Shamos, do you think God is Jesus?
I think you're a faggot.
Listen to how triggered he gets. Like, that's how easy it is for me to shut this faggot down.
Shamos, engage. Come on, man.
You're wrecking it.
What? So the answer is yes. I am being honest because I have talked to Shamos and I do know his views. The answer is yes.
Wait, you just contradicted yourself then. You just contradicted yourself.
The last couple times that I've...
Your whole premise was that you don't know any of Shamos' views. Now you just said, I've talked to him before, and I know his view on this. You're ridiculous.
And starts to argue whether or not we can argue for whether Jesus was a real person. And I respond to him by saying, listen, Shamos, I actually think Jesus may have been a real person. I believe he may have been a real person with a big following, right?
You just named the second thing which you know Shamos' view on.
But obviously, I consider Shamos to be dishonest at this point because he's not acknowledging the supernatural aspect of his beliefs. Like, this guy is impossible to talk to, right? He's obviously subscribing to the supernatural concept of God, but he will not discuss it. He will not open up about it. He'll just shift a burden to whether or not Jesus was a real person, and he literally considers God Jesus. So this guy is fucking off in La La Land as far as I'm concerned.
Where do you stand? What's your worldview, since it's the best worldview in the room? I just want to hear it. I'm not trying to debate or anything.
Well, fucked. I guess I would start. I mean, this is I'm so exhausted already. I didn't really want to have to repeat this, but I will. Fuck it. So I'd start with like how I know things to be true. It's one of these famous questions that I used to ask everyone in the room. It was a thing.
Define knowledge again for us, Jonjon. Give us your blockbuster definition.
I have a unique definition of knowledge, and I think that first off, I'm a Descartes person. So I start off with, I can't deny consciousness. My conscious experience is my reality, and I cannot deny consciousness. Right? Sam Harris said that there exists an eternal dimension within the universe itself called consciousness, and that is your reality, right? So I would say we start off with, and I'm just going to tell you guys my view. I think it's the best. So we start off with Descartes, and then we immediately have to define knowledge, or how we know things to be true and things like that. So my definition of knowledge is knowledge to a certain extent is merely thoughts, processes, and consistencies, right, that are in our conscious experience. So like the scientific thought process, for example, like we run experiments, we see consistencies, and consistencies can be a synonym for knowledge, right? So we have conscious experience, we have these thought processes, we have these consistencies, which we consider knowledge, and we have what we use in terms of knowing what to believe is something that is what I call likelihoods and probabilities, right, for the most part. So not everything's quantifiable, though. So, I mean, does anybody disagree with what I just said? Does anybody take issue with that definition of knowledge and starting from I can't deny consciousness?
I don't even understand what you just said.
Well, Molly, I'm trying to go into like let's say you ask me how I know things to be true, right? If you was to ask me how I know things to be true, I would have to start with I think, therefore I am, right? I'd have to start with conscious experience is something I cannot deny, right?
Isn't that question begging?
Well, you can't be skeptical of this, right? There are no true skeptics, first of all. That's important to point out.
Wait, why can't you be skeptical? Well, I'm making a charge against the form of your argument, not the content of it.
What was that?
Well, I mean, when you say I, are you not already presupposing the thing that you're trying to answer?
Yeah, I can understand your criticism there, but like I said, we can just kind of like, I'm okay with just saying that my conscious experience is something I cannot deny. Like, I'm okay with just saying that. Would you agree with that? That your conscious experience is something you cannot deny? Like, you cannot deny that it's like something to be you, right?
I thought you were teaching me the best world view.
Oh yes, trust me.
It just sounds like a more complicated version of justified true.
But we haven't gotten very far into the worldview at all. We're still stuck in epistemology.
Well,
right?
I mean, I was taking notes, dude, and you started with cogito ergo sum, and I said, "Isn't that question begging?" So I'm asking if your starting point is question begging for your.
Well, of course, every starting point is a question.
Yes, it's like.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that epistemic circularity includes question begging. There's virtuous and vicious circularity, and I can send you a link on it if you like.
Well, if it's from Jonjon, then it's vicious then. But then again, what is it that you're taking?
But he's telling me this is the best worldview, so I'm trying to understand how his starting point. If you're going to start at question begging and not true epistemic circularity,
whoa. It is not question begging, dude.
I just asked a question. Is I not presupposing that the self exists, which is what you're trying to answer?
That's the wrong way to. That's the wrong way to view this issue, right? Like I said, I asked you, are you okay with it? Now I think you would agree. So that's where we go from here. I'm going to get you to agree with. Listen, you agree that your conscious experience is something you can't deny. Yes or no? Is that true?
Again, what I believe is irrelevant to you giving me the
Listen,
best
can you just answer the yes or no question?
No, I'm not going to answer the question. You're trying to provide a burden of proof for your best worldview.
No.
And when I question your starting point, you're not giving me any
question, right?
Okay, so here's my thing, dude. When you say I think, therefore I am, you're saying X thinks, I am that X.
We're not even talking about I think, therefore I am. We're talking about not being able to. I've already told you. I understand your criticism here. Whenever you say
but that's your starting point. So your worldview's broke already.
You're getting caught up in the weeds.
No.
I can't go any further with you.
Perico, I understand what you're saying, but the reality is we have to grant existence first.
It's good.
Now we're not
not
talking
any further, dude.
Doubting existence, are we? Are we doubting existence, man? Because if we are, we need to be first acknowledging existence, then talking about our worldview. Because what are you going to see
I'm not doubting
if not existence
dude,
itself?
But if you're going to tell me that you have this master epistemology that nobody can question, and your starting point is a question-begging thing like cogito ergo sum, I don't have anywhere to go with you.
I'm not claiming to be a coherentist, right? I'm not claiming to have absolute truth. I'm just claiming that I have the best worldview. I have the most healthy thought process of reality, right? That's what I'm claiming. I'm claiming that I'm not claiming to be a fucking coherentist like fucking Darth Dawkins or Mr. Batman.
Well, I mean, I'm a coherentist, dude, so I wouldn't have a problem with it if you were. But I don't think that question begging is the same as valid epistemic circularity.
Well, let me ask you something. Let me ask a question. How would you evaluate the validity between question begging worldviews?
I would say that any worldview that is making their starting point question begging is invalid by